Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Tuesday evening to you all. I hope you guys are doing awesome out there tonight. Had yourselves a wonderful day, and I hope everyone has been having a great week out there so far. I got you a nighttime video. I've not made one in about a week and a half or so, but before that, I hadn't made one in a while, and it's just because things have been quiet. The weather has not been, significant, if you will, but here we are breaking down a significant severe weather risk for tomorrow for your Wednesday, and that's all we're going to talk about in this evening's video is tomorrow's severe weather risk across the middle of the country. So the first thing we'll do is we'll discuss the latest from the Storm Prediction Center and how they have upgraded another category from a slight to an enhanced risk. We'll break that down. And then we'll break down a short-range model called the HRR model, or the HRRR model, and kind of break down what it's showing as far as the evolution, the timing of these storms across several states in the middle of the country. And then if you want to just listen to me geek out a little bit about severe weather, we'll speak on the ingredients that's driving the severe weather risk for tomorrow. And I'm telling you right off the dot, that I really think severe weather is going to be a heavy topic over the next several days. Obviously tomorrow, but I think next week could be another active week of severe weather, maybe as early as this coming weekend. So we'll speak on that when need be. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. I did not have an opportunity to answer the comments from this morning's video, but I will get to those tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon. I got you covered there. So let's get rocking and rolling. So this is the latest from the Storm Prediction Center. This is from weatherwise.com, folks. This is an up-and-coming awesome weather website. They have an app too on Android and iPhone. I highly recommend it. You can zoom in and out on this, and that's exactly what we're going to do on this. So definitely check it out. It's called Weatherwise, weatherwise.com. Check those folks out. So here we are. Latest from the Storm Prediction Center. We now have an enhanced risk in this orange area. It's a level 3 out of 5, folks. So our first enhanced risk in quite some time. I don't even remember the last time we had an enhanced risk. I think when we had the tornado risk with Milton was the last time. So I guess not that long ago, but it seems like it was. But a slight risk surrounding the enhanced risk, level 2 out of 5. So this covers a lot of real estate. And then we have a marginal risk of severe weather, level 1 out of 5, stretching from southwest Wisconsin all the way down into central Texas. But let's really zoom into this enhanced risk. And this is what's awesome about this site. Folks, it really shows, I can zoom right into you guys' neighborhood if I knew where it was. But it's like combining Google Maps with the Storm Prediction Center Outlook, just like Zoom Earth is with the tropics. I'm very happy I found this site. It's going to be awesome using it, breaking down severe weather. But Kansas City, St. Joseph, Topeka, it shows many areas. Hopefully you can see it pretty well. Emporia, all the way down to just north and northwest and west of Tulsa. Enhanced risk, slight risk, and goes all the way from Dallas-Fort Worth area through Ardmore, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, all the way up here to, Creston, Red Oak, Iowa. So pretty wild stuff. What is this? What's driving this? Like, what's the biggest risk for tomorrow? Well, folks, there is a 10% risk of a tornado in this yellow area. So if I click on it, it's going to have a little icon that comes up. A 10% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. And then there's a 10% risk of a significant tornado within 25 miles of any given location in this hatched region. Okay, so not only in this area with the black outline region, not only do you have that risk of, let's get this off here, that risk of a 10% risk, that 10% risk of a tornado, you also have that 10% risk of a strong tornado, EF2 or higher. And then if you live in this brown shaded area, that is a 5% risk of a tornado, which does include the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Oklahoma City, Tulsa. But Kansas City, you have a 10% risk of a tornado. Topeka, you have a 10% risk of a strong tornado within 25 miles in a given location. So, folks, this is the real deal. And the wind threat in that red area, that's where you have a 30% chance of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour within 25 miles of any given location. And in the yellow area, that is a 15% risk of that. Let's zoom into the highlighted region. Here it is, towns, cities once again. Okay, and then the hail threat is a big deal too, but not as big as the wind and the tornado risk. And this entire area here in the yellow, that's where you have a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. So folks, this is a big deal tomorrow. And this site is awesome. It really is. I can't get over it. Zoom in and right into this area one more time. I mean, you can zoom really far, folks. I mean, check this out. A lot of people are always saying, Mitch, what about this zip code? I mean, you can zoom into that kind of stuff in this. It's really awesome. So check it out. So that's an update per the Storm Prediction Center. What's kind of driving this? We're going to take a look at water vapor loop really quick here. This might lull some people to sleep, but I always like breaking down what's driving this, okay? But you see this big dip right here. This is the water vapor loop. Tells us, how much dry and moist air is in the atmosphere. That is a dip in the jet stream. And you notice that the flow is going just like that. That is a southwesterly flow. And what we watch for is little embedded pieces of upper energy or little weak low pressures or strong low pressures. And they kind of move across this almost kind of like conveyor belt or just this. It's just a jet. It's like the road avenue in the upper levels of the atmosphere of where these storm systems track, and they're going right across the middle of the country now, ejecting across the country. And that's exactly what's going to do. This flow will continue to trail off across the middle of the country, and eventually it'll kind of come down here, and we're going to have a piece of energy that flies right through this area tomorrow that's going to bring a lot of low-level moisture into this area, okay? And it's going to bring a low-level jet that's going to promote a lot of wind energy for damaging winds and a tornado risk. So this huge dip in the jet stream you're seeing right here is what's driving this. And it goes all the way up here, and then it goes down like this. And then we're being dominated by this wrapping high pressure right here, which continues to bring no rain for the southeast. So moving forward here, let's break down the HRRR model. So the first state, and we're going to discuss, is Oklahoma and North Texas. I know Kansas is showing up in this. I know Arkansas is. And I'll mention Arkansas in this too. But we're going to keep Kansas and Missouri into another timestamp, okay? Let's get this in motion. We're going to start this off by around tomorrow morning, around 7 a.m. So I know this says 8 a.m. right here, but we're in Central Time, so back it up an hour, okay? So this is technically 7 a.m. Not a whole lot going on. Some showers. Moisture is on the increase. And then we start to get into about 3 p.m. A little bit of convection, shower, and storm activity. Not a whole lot. But it's really as we start to get once the sun sets. Look at these storms in Kansas. Let's focus on Oklahoma for now. When do they start to become widespread in Oklahoma? I really think the northern counties right here north of Oklahoma City and west of Tulsa, this is when things will light up before anybody else. And this is around 8 p.m. Look at these storms north of Oklahoma City. All these will have a risk of all hazards. I mean, damaging winds, hail, and a tornado risk with this. And then this continues, kind of evolves into what we say a linear threat, which is more of a line segment of storms. This is around midnight. Look at these storms draping across North Texas at this point. This is the Dallas-Fort Worth area right here. At this point, around midnight, tomorrow night, not tonight, tomorrow night, this has already moved through Tulsa and Oklahoma City. How strong are these storms as they continue to move through this area? This is starting to move into like northwestern Arkansas, the Fort Smith area, Fayetteville. This is around 2 o'clock in the morning, Thursday morning. And then look at these storms moving through southeast Oklahoma. These storms start to, I don't think these storms will really do anything for the Dallas-Fort Worth area until late tomorrow night. I mean, maybe after midnight. But this continues to move across this area. There becomes to get a little bit of a tilt with this, so that's why these kind of start out more vertical and then go more horizontal right here. It's because the jet kind of flattens out and the system kind of goes more west to east rather than southwest to northeast, if you will. But we're waking up Thursday morning here, Halloween morning, to a lot of shower and storm activity in Arkansas and the Texarkana area right here, where Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana kind of connect. Can wake up to some showers and storms. How severe will they be at this point? We're not quite sure. We'll just have to watch. So what about the updraft Felicity swath? This tells us where we could have a spin with some of these storms, where we have rotation with these storms on this particular run, the HRRR model. Okay, it doesn't mean that just where you see this like area right here, just outside of Tulsa, there's a 100% chance you're going to get a tornado. Just this tells us where we could get some rotation with this storm. That doesn't mean it's going to latch the surface, become an all-out tornado, but some rotation. So certainly got to watch at these areas, these highlighted color areas, and in Oklahoma for some rotating thunderstorms. And I mean, that's why if you zoom out for Oklahoma, okay, you do have the risk of a tornado. I mean, let me zoom out a little bit more. Here we go. In this section right here, just outside of Tulsa, just north of Tulsa, you have that 10% risk of a tornado. You match it up with the HER model, it makes sense. See the highlighted colors right here and here, right here in this area, right here and here. That makes sense. But you look at the significant tornado parameter, and it does spike. That's another kind of crappy thing about this is it looks like the tornado threat really spikes after the sun is beginning to set, and you start to get the parameters that are reaching like 5s and 6s, even 7s right in here. So this means that the higher the number, the better in your ingredients that support tornadoes is here, okay? And then it spikes again like after midnight. Like look how the significant tornado parameter gets to like a 7 and 8 in eastern Oklahoma. So we got to watch for a nocturnal tornado risk. And then, of course, we do want to watch, let's see, let's look at the winds. Not winter. I wish we were talking about winter weather. We look at the predicted wind swaths with this. And, I mean, we're going to get some gusty winds. I mean, it doesn't show anything too crazy, but it does show some 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts with some of these bands. So gusty winds with this too. Now let's talk about Kansas. Kansas is obviously a big state highlighted per the Storm Prediction Center. We move this in time. We start to, I mean, already, folks, I mean, this is like 1 p.m. We're already getting storms in northern Kansas. We'll talk about Nebraska and Iowa here in a second. In fact, let me make sure. Yeah. So let's make sure we have enough of Nebraska. And Nebraska does. So we're going to talk a little bit about Nebraska and this too, just southeast Nebraska here. So already about midday, you might as well call it, we have some shower. We have a lot of storm activity up here in Omaha, Lincoln. These could produce some hail. They could produce some damaging winds and a tornado. That's why you have a 10% risk of a tornado up into this area. But it's really what I'm watching for is this low pressure kind of ejects across Kansas. Look at these storms that kind of basically come out of nowhere right in this area of Kansas. Okay, if we kind of look at this right here, it looks like they pop up right around like Abilene, Kansas, Wakefield, in this area. It looks like they really fire up right here. Okay, so we keep this going, and we go all the way to about 5 p.m. Look at these storms ongoing right here in sort of east central Kansas. And then they start to head right towards Topeka. So this is where I'm concerned for Kansas. We get to about 7, 8 p.m. You see how these storms are kind of discrete? The more discrete these storms are, the more they're going to take advantage of all the ingredients in the atmosphere. And the more, I would say, the higher your tornado threat's going to be. So we really want these to go linear quick. But this is 7 to 8 p.m. This is where my biggest concern is for a tornado risk. Like Emporia right here. I believe that's how you say it. Yeah, and as we're getting into 9 p.m., these storms start to get really close to Kansas City. They're starting to affect, northwestern sections of Missouri, and these storms will be continuing through the evening. I mean, we can't ignore the storms up here. Look here in the far southeast corner of Nebraska. If you live in this area around dinner time tomorrow, these storms are going to be packing a punch, all hazards. But you keep this going, these storms begin to fully exit Kansas, I would say, around midnight tomorrow night. But the same thing, folks. Let's look at the significant tornado parameter first. Okay, we'll start off tomorrow morning. And watch how it spikes right there tomorrow evening. It's around 7 p.m. Significant tornado parameter reaches like 4, 5, and a 6. The ingredients begin to spike for tornado activity. And it basically really plagues the entire eastern half, especially extreme eastern Kansas. And look at Kansas City. I mean, Kansas City gets an STP value for short acronym of a 4 or 5 around 7, 8, 9 p.m. tomorrow. And if we look at the updraft velocity swath as far as what this looks like, yeah, I mean, that doesn't look good for eastern Kansas, southeastern Nebraska. Look at this swath going through this area. And look how it just kind of pops up out of nowhere right here. And that is because that low pressure ejects across this area, brings that low-level jet right over this area, and the low-level winds and just that wind shear begin to support a higher-end tornado threat. So if you live in this area of Kansas where you're seeing the slashes of the colors, this is where this particular run is showing rotating thunderstorms, which means you run the risk of a tornado. So definitely something serious. Our biggest severe weather risk that's not driven off a tropical system that we've seen in a few months, I would say. And you look at the wind threat with this, and you see a couple areas where the wind gusts, could get 50, maybe 55, 60 miles per hour in these little pockets with some of these stronger storms. And the last area we look at is the Midwest, okay, Missouri, Illinois, even up into Iowa. And, it's quiet tomorrow morning. We're starting to get a lot of moist air at the surface rising. You'll notice the humidity will increase. A lot of rain up into Iowa. I expect a severe weather risk for the far southern counties of Iowa. But I think for the most part, rumbles of thunder, some thunderstorms. But I think you'll be lacking a true severe element with this. But I could be wrong. I'll have to fine-tune that in the morning. But as we're starting to get around 5 p.m., we already got some thunderstorms moving through Kansas City, starting to move into western areas of Missouri. It's really what we watch for after that. And here it is, the southern counties of Iowa. This is around 9 p.m. These storms, if you live in this area of Iowa, southern Iowa, the damaging wind threat is probably your biggest threat with this, but an isolated tornado is certainly possible because you're right up against that the actual surface low. So your kinematics will be the best, but you'll probably be lacking a little bit of thermodynamics. Where's your best overlapping ingredients? I would say that's eastern Kansas. But check it out. We get into about 11 p.m. midnight tomorrow night. You get this line of storms probably producing a damaging wind threat moving through the western counties of Missouri. Eventually, this gets into central Missouri where it starts to lose some steam. And I think by the time we're getting into the wee hours of the morning, Thursday morning, Kansas City, you might be getting some rumbles of thunder, even all the way up into Milwaukee, Chicago, Champaign, Rockford. Could wake up to for your Halloween morning, your last morning of October 31st, to a rainy start. And then, this is actually around 7 a.m. Thursday morning. You got this thin line of storms that could still be severe, but most likely would be losing some steam at this point. And you look at the updraft velocity swath in this area, you can see how the tornado threat lessens the further east of this line of storms go. But, if you live in the western counties of Missouri, southern sections of Iowa, I do think you need to watch out for a tornado risk and a damaging wind threat with this. Okay, you see the highlighted colors in this area. You go back and you look at the tornado risk, and you only got a 5% risk for now up in the southern counties of Iowa, southwestern Iowa, really. But I could see this 10% risk area getting extended into this area. I really could. And we look at the damaging winds with this. Let's look at this. And you get some gusty winds over the next 48 hours. Throughout this area. 30, 40, 50 mile per hour wind gusts are possible with some of these lines of storms, or this main line of storms that moves in tomorrow night. So definitely gather any loose stuff up in the yard tomorrow and definitely be prepared for a lot of wind. But as far as the ingredients, kinematics, thermodynamics, where do you have the best overlapping of those two things? Thermodynamics is your heat, your moisture, your storm fuel. Your kinematics is your wind energy at the surface, aloft, etc. So what you're looking at here is what we call the low-level jet. Winds about a mile above our head, 4,000 to 6,000 feet up. So we're already waking up tomorrow morning with clouds racing out the south throughout the plains. Okay. Now, what is this going to look like as we start to get more so in the evening? Let's go on and just fast forward this. So I really think the low-level jet would actually, temporarily begin to relax. And then another kind of upper piece of energy will move through Kansas, out of Kansas, into like southeastern Nebraska. This will kind of enhance the low-level jet once again. So we'll get this 50 to 60 knot low-level jet that moves over areas of eastern Kansas. A little bit weaker down here in Oklahoma, but still plentiful. Okay, 40, 45 knot low-level jet. This aids in a damaging wind threat and a tornado risk. But I'm telling you, there's always a wild card, a triple point. Right where your best low-level moisture, your best kinematics meet up right at the base of this surface low. And that'll probably happen in the southeast Nebraska, maybe even southwestern Iowa, heck, maybe even northwestern Missouri, and certainly in Kansas. But you keep this going, you can see the circling or the rotating of these wind barbs right here. That is your low level, your actual surface low. Okay, and right against that surface low, that's where your best low-level wind flow is going to be that supports a tornado threat, right here in this area. So that's why your tornado threat really gets into Kansas, up into this area. And then, of course, we move forward here. Everything becomes linear as that low-level jet really gets stronger. This forces kind of the storm mode to take more of a linear look, and then this moves forward. And then talking about thermodynamics, you look at your moisture. It's already very humid waking up in most of Oklahoma and the eastern half of Kansas, all the way into southeastern Nebraska tomorrow. But check out how this moisture does nothing but it continues to increase and then gets kind of a reinforcement as that low, I want to keep on to say that low level jet, but that surface low is what I mean to say. I'm starting to mix the tropics with severe weather because in my mind I'm trying to make a shift here because I've been talking about the tropics so much. So I think I keep wanting to say low level circulation, but what I really mean to say is surface low. But you see this pool of low level flow, this moist air all the way up into southern Iowa. So this is tomorrow evening. Plenty of moist air. Dew points well above 60 is what I'm trying to say. That supports plenty of moist air for severe weather. And this continues and gets pulled all the way through Missouri overnight. So check that off the box. Moist air is there. So in response to your moist air, what about your CAPE levels? You're already waking up to some fuel in the atmosphere tomorrow. So mixed layer CAPE, folks. This is your storm fuel, what these storms really need to mooch off of to really get going. But I mean, the latest HERD model shows CAPE values getting over 1,500 joules per kilogram in eastern Kansas tomorrow. And I mean, even just 1,000 CAPE, folks, will get the job done in this kind of setup. So you definitely have plenty of fuel in this area that the Storm Prediction Center is highlighting ultimately. Okay, so definitely heads up. We'll go over all this once again tomorrow, and we'll get it all figured out. Folks, I am still watching the tropics. We had a little bit of an uptrend today. I'm not just totally ignoring the tropics, but it's just weird right now in the tropics. I'll speak on it tomorrow morning. I got you covered. God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful night. Stay safe out there.